Health and wellness are more than a destination. They are a process and a journey of personal choice. Come hear from people out in the field, doing the work, bringing health and wellness to many. I would love to introduce my three mothers, and we're going to have a discussion today about motherhood and wellness. I'm so looking forward. This is going to be wonderful. And I'd like to introduce Mylena, Maxime, and Manuschka, who are all French. So they want to say hello in French to all their French family.
Bonjour.
And we think that's a nice way to start this interview. So I started out by asking, because this is so important for us, you know, the family. Families are, for me, everything. But I know from all of you that this also matters to you. And I'm very curious about why. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience as a mother. Maybe start with Mylena.
So for me, motherhood started late. I had a long life as a woman in business, a little girl before, and then motherhood hit me. I think this is a fantastic feeling which I discovered, and I plunged into it, heartfully, and it was quite some experience that I'd love to have a discussion on today.
Wonderful, Maxime.
Yes, Kathleen, I'm very happy to be there. I am from a big family because we are four sisters, and my mother and my father was with a big family too, and with my husband we have only two daughters, but we are very happy. It is joy and it's nice. For you?
Manuschka.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Caitlin, for having us over.
Oh, so nice.
No, for me, I was listening to Mylena. For me, to have children was for me the ultimate love experience. And I remember I worked a long time in corporate as well, because when this happened, I said, well, this is the most important thing in life. And I'm going to leave all this just to take care of this and make sure this goes well.
So lovely.
That's what
I
I think about
feel
it.
that is so important. So tell me a little bit, like when we look at wellness, because we're raising our kids, right? And there's so many obstacles, right? Like it isn't always easy and things happen. But tell me a little bit about your experience and why wellness matters.
Well, it's all about making sure that this kid of ours, can grow in a safe and warm environment. And if that kid is not well, then suddenly everything is in shambles. And I think I've never felt so bad by seeing a kid not healthy and not well. So for me, I do think that my life, starts with a kid that is raised with lots of, healthy habits. And also, I think we'll discuss that, but, understand how we can provide a wellness environment for that kid to grow.
I was very lucky with my girl because I born with an healthy and was I think it's we are lucky, and after we would like that the girl are very happy in life, and we think that the children must to be happy for a good adult, and they stay with the happiness and respect. Respect from children and happiness.
So you're looking for them to be happy.
To be happy.
To be
I
well.
think
In other words,
to be
if they're-
well.
yeah.
And I think it's very, very important when a child is happy, everything is going on.
You feel that.
Yeah, exactly. I
It's
feel when...
connected.
Yeah, I feel,
Yeah.
And I think,
It's not only happy life,
No.
happy wife.
Yeah. Begin.
That's good, Mylena.
Yeah, exactly. Too. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I think it's a whole package. I agree with you guys. The happiness of your child. I think if it's a stable child, he feels confident and then he's well. And it can be on many levels, just not being health, but on every level, I think it's
Tell me
so
about
important.
those levels. Tell me about the
Now,
level.
there's so many much more levels. I think emotionally, if you're not well emotionally, if you feel your kid has something, even if it's not a health issue, you have to be there for them and go through it with them. Because if you don't do that, you can see he's kind of, wondering. So you have to find something that gives them that confidence and that base. And I think that is so important. When you have this for a child, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, so when they feel good about themselves.
Yeah, they're
So that's
grounded.
the emotional, and then, of course, the physical. They have
Physical,
to,
yeah,
and then you
both
have,
of them.
course, the spiritual that
Yeah, which is also very
is
important.
connected to
Yeah.
another energy that we all need, right?
That's
so
for
it's
sure. Yeah.
beautiful. Oh, that's so nice. So what I want to know now from you, because we obviously don't live in the perfect world. Right now we're living in a world where we really have some issues that we're being faced with as mothers and fathers, also families, but definitely the mother. I know as we have different talents. I think with my husband, I know if I can say my husband, when he would go away, he could just go away. I didn't feel like I could ever just go away. When I was away, like even one day, I'd be like, okay, well, this hasn't happened, and this, I'm in tune with it. It's like an energy, and you can feel almost that something's not okay or something's okay. But right now in the world, we could say there are some challenges to our children's well-being. So I just want to ask you all, what are some of the challenges that you see, you experienced, and also you see now with kids that are pretty concerning?
I think in first we must to listen the child, and we listen every day. We are lucky to. I can listen my child every day of life, and I think a child you cannot put on when you want. He explains the day of the school, or I don't know, and off, on and off. No, and you must to be there. But I make a lot of things in the house, and we make. But the children can come every time
To
in
you.
to me.
They know.
And explain and to tell and to speak and
It's safe.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's good for them.
So I think that's so important what you're bringing up here, because obviously each person needs to be respected and listened to.
Exactly.
And if a child is in trouble, which there's a lot going on right now that can have that happen, then if you're not really listening to them, you're not going to be aware, really, right? You're not really, and they're not going to come to you after a while if you're not listening. So you bring up such an important part of motherhood and what makes a mother really aware of how they can help their child. That's so beautiful, Maxime. Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Challenges that
No,
we
because
are,
you see, I see now, especially now, but I think there's so much anxiety and stress with our kids. I think the level of, what they have to do and what's happening in the world. And I think, when they were young, we said we need to be there with them. But I think it's now even more important when they get older to be there with him, because there's so much going on in their minds. And I think they're so much more sensible, I think, than we were, because they're so much more aware what is
because
going
of
on. in this
social
world.
media and everything, right?
They know everything.
Yeah.
So that's more important even now to be there for them, even than when they were young, because there are much more issues that are, playing for them, and be there with them and listen to them. And even though not sitting on a table, but just being around them and sometimes asking a question or just being there, I think it's so important for them to know that we're there for them and to discuss stuff with us as well.
So one of the things I think is a big issue too, when I hear you saying this whole idea of what social media, imagine when I was young, we didn't even have a computer or phone. So you just played, you were in nature, you walked. Now we have all these distractions, and the new kids who are under like 22 right now, they have gone through a lot, right? With all the things that we've gone
Sure,
through.
yeah.
But how did you as a mother handle those changes? Because so much changed in our lives, but then also their lives, right?
I think by being there, I think more even than when they were young. Just having little kind of things, when you had little signals, just saying, okay, I see this, and then being there for them. Not mentioning it, not really giving it a name, but just sit down and talk about other things, and then kind of get to the issues that were playing on. Because there were so many things, especially as we had, last couple of 3 years, so many things going on in their minds. And then at a level, speak to them at a level that we also speak as adults to each other.
Beautiful.
I think by taking that in, I think that's the way to do it.
Now, I'm curious if you have comments about, all of you at this moment, family time. Like, what does that mean when I say that? Because we're talking about individually talking to the children, right? But how can we, because what I see, one of the obstacles is the children are more and more on the devices, and they're more and more, captivated with that world. And yet we have this real world, right? This world that we're in. So Mylena.
It's I think it's a very, very good point and question, because we had a fantastic discussion on the topic about education. Because listening to the kids, it's also understanding what type of education in this world where we are bombarded with electronics, with bad food, with, lots of, negative thoughts. So all of these things together makes that the child is just challenged. And we were thinking, at the end, motherhood is also about the power of saying no, or the power of putting guidelines. And often the French are kind of saying, you French moms, you say no a lot, especially compared to the
Americans
US.
can too. No, Americans can also. It depends. It depends where you are.
Indeed. So we were saying that the power of saying no, the power of providing guidelines, which then you can have a conversation about those guidelines. So it's not about imposing a guideline, but motherhood is about creating a conversation around the guideline so we can understand where you're on the other side. And I think that's also part of, respecting the challenge that the kids have today. It's about helping them through the challenges.
That's so
and
beautiful.
in a discussion or a conversation.
So it's Mylena. So I have a question on this because I find that so important. What you're really talking about is in this world that is so, in a way, open. Like you can just go on social media and know everything about everyone. That was not how it was before, right? In my time, nobody had that openness to everything known about them. So now the children are kind of vulnerable. And sometimes they don't know what's safe or not safe. They're just curious. Of course, they're curious about all that they see. So creating healthy boundaries is definitely important in the family unit, but it's also important as a mother, right? To be able to say, actually, that's not okay right now for you to get involved in that. I'm concerned about that for you or whatever. So maybe you comment on that because that is true. We're seeing this more and more of a problem.
No, but I think the idea of saying that's not okay is a proof of love.
Yeah.
It's the proof. It's harder to say no than yes.
Yeah.
And I really think that today, to help some kids who feel dark, some days they are, bright, they're happy, everything goes on. But on the day where, it's not so obvious, they have emotional, issues, then it's the moment to pick them up and then to pick them up with what the boundaries are, how can we bring them up? So it's and because we have said yes and no, we can show them what's the right path, in that situation.
Yeah. So obviously what we really want is our children, what I'm hearing, we want them to grow up, love themselves and believe in themselves. But we also want them to get safely through everything. So I think that's the challenge of this time. So I'm going to ask you about important things too. Like, let's look at stress. How is the world we're living in now causing so much stress to kids? Like, it's not even normal. You mentioned education. I think we know that the level of the education system has to change, first of all, but because the new kids think differently. Right? It's not like we have to memorize things anymore. And yet we have the old system that makes us want to do it that way and forcing us still. But the kids are bored, I think, because they can just go look it up. It's not so interesting.
I don't know if I have a solution, but I'm always very open. I mean, we had at high school, they had a kind of expression at Tom School, like een 7 en een leven. So not only A's and stuff like that, but if you have a 7 and a life, then it's okay as well. But I love that because she said as well, the director of the school said, those kids have to have a life. It's great if you're a great learner and you can have straight A's, perfect for you. But have a life around it, with music, with theater, whatever it might be.
A balanced life.
A balanced life. And I think the school did it, but we are I think fathers are more like, I want all straight A's or something like that. But I was very in the beginning already, I said, you do your best. That's the most important part.
That's perfect.
So I don't think from the stress for school, he didn't get it from his parents, I think.
No,
And I think the school was quite relaxed in that as well, to be very honest. So,
Yeah, and he was educated in Holland or France?
oh, in Holland.
In Holland, I
yeah.
thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Dutch educational system is definitely less stress than others. I mean, although when you get older, it can be stressful. But I know because I had kids in both. But American is off the charts, and I think French is pretty strict, right? Very strict, yeah. But I think, I don't know, how do you feel about this? For me, it's not so much about the strictness. That is one element. But it's literally like, are our kids, are these schools now, are they bored? Are our kids really, like, it's kind of just a question I'm asking myself as I see the kids struggling to be really focused. Does anyone want to comment on that? Maxime or maybe Mylena?
Manuschka, we don't have the solution, but I think we speak a lot of for dinner. We have every day family dinner. We have at 8 o'clock. We are we are.
So what does
table.
that bring you
And
as a family having dinner?
yes, because everybody speak about is stress.
Like there's no electronics,
Yeah.
I don't think.
I
Right?
know about no electronics.
No electronics. At
No,
dinner.
sorry.
Yeah.
It's not, in my family, and I think you too, we have rules, and you have subject. You can speak and change opinion, everything, but you have subject. You don't. It is the parent choose for the children, and that's it. Because
I understand.
sorry, but
I
yes.
understand. Because otherwise, this just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have a family dinner.
No.
If you didn't create that atmosphere as the mother, right?
Yeah.
You are creating a foundation that you expect that we're going to be together as a family, that matters.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who's listening, so that could be important for wellness, is what you're saying.
We think so. And it is difficult for the children that don't have the iPhone, iPad, everything. But we tell with my husband, we are not animals, and you can stay 1 hour without telephone and mobile and everything. And it is the same in the restaurant and with friends, no phone.
Yeah. Well,
And,
it is as you're saying this, I'm remembering some situations in my own family where we would be at something, and the children would be on the devices, and then I would be like, well, that's making other people feel bad because you're not really interested in other people. So if you get so into the devices, they're into that world, but it's not this world. And that's why I think it's important. You're right, for wellness.
And,
this is the world. This is the
a world. And for our children, they can use the computer and mobile until 10 o'clock.
Okay.
After 10 o'clock, it's finished.
Because of all the
And they need to
stimulation. They don't sleep.
To go to sleep. And it's not easy for parents. Was cry with children when they don't want, but doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's hard in that way to be a mother.
Mom, you say, and my husband, you say no all time. You say no, and I say, because we love you.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
I love
and
that.
I think,
That's so
but
beautiful,
we are
Maxime.
trying to do our best. And after,
that's That's so
but
beautiful.
it's all right. I think I like your comment about, the stress part, because I felt that with having kids that have gone through their, last years of college in the past 2-3 years, that the level of stress has been huge. They've been bombarded with, a lot of information, a lot of things on them, and the education system has not coped at all. So I think a part of the wellness is that we have to substitute ourselves as mom to really give them that comfort they're not getting anymore from the education system, which I think have lost a couple of years at trying to catch up with the emotional status of children. And I can, for both of my daughters, I think when I see their friends group and what's happening, there are so many of them that are, in an emotional, disarray. I find that extremely worrying. So that's why there is a real need for wellness, for understanding what life we're in.
So in other words, when we look at holistic health, we look at like too much stimuli, it causes stress, right? That is stress. We need a little bit, but we're bombarded with a high level. So academically, maybe not, but there are children that just do that themselves, right? But also, are they moving enough? Are they in nature? Are they all the things that we used to have that would always happen? You would be in nature or whatever. Just seems like it's not the world, the name of the game. That's not just happening anymore. We have to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. The schools aren't always able to make all that happen for the kids. And I think that's important.
And when it happens, they're in a great place. So I see when they have a routine, as my daughter would say, when they have a routine where they do sport, they eat well. When
different.
the whole, 360 is done, when spiritually they are upbeat and they understand. I think that is the magical, situation. So you see it when it works well. So that's also, spiritually interesting because it lifts their spirit quite at a higher level when their routine works, exercise-wise.
They feel better physically.
Completely.
And
completely.
mentally. So I'm curious. We have a lot of young mothers, I'm sure, or mothers listening that are just in the middle of it. Obviously, I always say to be really appreciating them when they're little because it goes really fast. That's one of the things I always say. But what would you say? You guys have had this journey. What would you, Mylena?
I was offered so many books when my kids came home for the first time. And I would say, forget all these books. Just start with your kid. Learn what they like. Some kids, I had two daughters, they were so different. So none of the theory of the books would have worked for any of them. One couldn't sleep at night and there was no way she could sleep. And the other one, would sleep like an angel. So I was trying to impose the rhythm on one on the other and it doesn't work. So I would say focus more on try to understand your kid from within. Because I think by understanding the kid from within, we would have no rules, but they will dictate their rules. And then we have to be, to your point, bigger listener.
Yeah.
So I would say
flexibility is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, flexibility. Beautiful. And start with the kids, I would say.
Maxime?
I think I can't to respond to this question because when I have my first girl, wow. No, she's here, and what a surprise! And I think it is you make like your best. You learn with your baby, and your baby learn with you. You must to do what you think the best for you, for your child. And
so you're saying don't listen to everybody.
Yeah.
Make your own decision.
Yes, I think it is instinctive.
It's intuitive.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking because it's a cliche, of course, you said you have this time with them, enjoy it. But I'm very much as well what I see with young parents nowadays that, you don't tell little kids what to do. And when they're older, they understand what you're saying. But when they're still so young, they just sometimes it doesn't get through their mind. And when I see about devices, about a lot of young parents nowadays, having this wonderful child and spending it also on their device. And I believe it's much more about not what you tell the children.
Like the parents.
The parents themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not about what you tell your children, but what you do yourself. Because I think they're the biggest copycats for kids, what we do. I see that as well. What we do, we even don't tell them. And we say, hey, this is so nice. He's doing this or he's doing that because we did it and he saw it. So I think for young parents nowadays, be much more aware of what you are doing and what you're showing your kids, especially when they're so young.
You are so right.
That's what they will kind of,
You're making me think of something. Oh. No, it's very funny. It's not funny, actually. It's the whole issue with the drugs and the alcohol use, and that, of course, comes in adolescence. But I remember one person saying to me, wow, how can we be when you go to some adult parties and everybody's so drunk, how can we be critical like of them?
Yeah.
Because we have had those examples of doing that, coping that way. So until we change our coping patterns, how can we expect them in the most stressful world of all? Because this is much more stressful than when we were young. How can we ask them to, not do those things? So it's difficult, I just share
It's
that
about
with you.
telling them how, but showing them how. I think
Showing them.
or not even
Beautiful.
awarely doing it, but kind of if you do it,
Yeah.
they'll
Well,
see
if you
it.
do that, like, don't drive. Don't,
Yeah.
be responsible when you do things like that. So we have food that is so important. We need to nurture, we need to make food, or at least these family dinners or breakfast and all matters, right? But I'm going to ask you, because we all know that the food has changed. It isn't what it was when we were young. What advice could you give to mothers?
Talking about food, I can tell you how happy I am when I cook with my daughters.
Okay.
And I really believe that picking the ingredients, looking at, from the raw ingredients, cooking it in a healthy way, showing them how to make recipe for themselves so that they can after, have their own diet. And also it's all about love. So for me, I love it. Food is part, I think, of, is life. And it's in the family as a mother. I think our duty is also to show them how to nourish themselves in a proper way. So when my daughter calls, and say, oh, I'm coming and we're going to cook this and this, pot au feu, or this and this, sauce, do you have the ingredients? This for me is, a proof of love and a proof that also themselves, they are taking care of their own diet because they understand the power of vegetables, they understand the power of certain ingredients. And it is not about, forcing anything on them. It's because, it's love that we are pushing from one generation to another.
Beautiful.
The pot au feu one is it's a real one.
That is a beautiful French meal. Oh.
With the bouillon, it starts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I'm coming.
Well, like you, I love to eat and to share the dinner, but unfortunately, I don't like to cook. Yes,
That
I
is
don't like.
like
It's not
me
my and was a little bit complicated for my girl, but I give all time vegetable, fruit, vegetable, meat, and fish, everything, because in France, all children must to
Eat a variety.
everything. Even they don't like, it's normal, huh? They don't like, but just a little bit. And they eat, and now they are cooking for me when they come back.
Nice.
With
That's
recipe.
nice, Maxime.
I did a job. I did a job. And
You did something right. That's so cute.
Yeah.
And we all love to cook, no? I have a husband that cooks very well, Mylena knows, so we have two in the house, and my son does a good job as well. Now, I was more thinking about the food, what you're saying, that I remember when my son was young as well, that when they're at the primary school, they don't even know where it comes from. No. So they were like, oh, you just say, oh, lettuce, oh, yeah, it comes from the supermarket, mom, or broccoli, or whatever. And I think there is a part for us, especially with this generation, we don't even know where it comes from. It's just for them.
Not good.
It's it's there and you can buy it. And I think we have to go back. I remember at primary school, we had those outings with the kids.
Yeah.
And went to the farm to show them, this is where the cow lives. This is where the food comes from. This is where the green is. And I think that's, for me, is a worrying part about food, that they don't realize anymore where it comes from.
Yeah.
It's just there.
And it has a frequency. All food either nourishes us or it doesn't. And when I can say, when you're saying this, it's making me think of when I watched the children in their lunch break come out of the Albert Heijn, which is here, and then they would have chips, Coke, literally all processed food. And I don't think they realize what they're eating at all.
No.
So the education, we need to go back and say, in my opinion, what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
And go back to
ourselves.
educating our kids through example
Yeah.
and through showing them. very much.
And I have a great friend whose example was that she just came from having lunch with, her son in boarding school in the UK, and she said, "Oh, but they were not expected the mom to have lunch in the canteen with the son." And she said, "But it's not possible that they have this kind of food." So it was also, as a mother,
A shock.
your role is
Yeah.
also to go and check, because you may delegate a few things, but on food you really have to check that your kids are well nourished as well. So I thought that was a loving mother, who against all odds went to have lunch with the kids. So I think
Exactly.
it's a nice story.
So there is another issue, of course, because the world is changing, and one of the changes is in medicine. So we used to just go to the doctor and when we were sick, and luckily it didn't happen very much. But now we're having a world where we see a lot of people sick at a much younger age and out of balance, basically, on body, mind, and spirit. So you spoke about the mental health and the emotional health, but we also have a body, and it can be physically deprived. Obviously, the food today is part of the problem. But I'm wondering how you look at how, as a mother, you handle that. Like, how do you handle the health of your child?
I am completely lost with medicine today. I don't know how to help my kids. I think it's very true that I always end up having a combination of things. But I am completely lost in how to help my kids medicine-wise, honestly.
It's complicated.
It's
because you don't,
too
if we give a
complicated.
medicine, it's like a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And we used to just be healthier. So we didn't really, I mean, I don't have memories of that many people sick when I was young. And now it seems like, oh, this child has diabetes. This one has an autoimmune. You're like, what? How come so much illness? So I think we do have to ask questions, right? We have to ask questions. And I also think we need to look sometimes in other ways, other solutions. So I'm curious if any of you have looked into other things with your children when they weren't physically well.
As you know, I have lived in the Caribbean for 10 years when I was 4 years old, so most of my childhood I spent there. And there, of course, they're very close to nature. And I've been there as a mom as well, like nurturing, but also not always going to the regular medicines, but also sometimes thinking what they do in Haiti when I was there, when I felt ill or something like that, with herbs or some other stuff, or just talking to them and asking, is there something else maybe wrong with you? And it's
Like
not
emotional. Or something,
emotional.
yeah.
So I think that's something as well that I was used to do, not in terms of real, of course, regular medicine as well, but sometimes also can be solved even a step before that, before they came ill.
That's
and
so
then do that.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm hearing you say, which is so powerful, that you work on keeping them well.
Yeah.
So you do things that keep them well, and you don't just wait till they're
the
sick.
moment,
And
no.
if they are sick, you might look for other solutions other than just a physical Western medicine.
Yes.
That's
I think we do
beautiful.
that too often. We just go for every little thing. We go to the doctors, and sometimes it's, of course, for certain things you need to go to the doctor. That's for sure. But sometimes there is a step before that which you can also solve or try to be aware of and handle.
Yeah, because we know that medicines don't necessarily cure it, right? They're putting like a Band-Aid for a moment, and sometimes you need them. I mean, I'm a nurse, so sometimes you need them. But what you're saying, I have learned in my life through my children also, that I think is really important to ask questions and to do things right now to keep healthy. So some of those things are maybe to improve the food, to make sure you're picky, right, about what you and your family are eating, but also to make sure that they're balanced in everything, that they're not just extreme, right?
But this being said, I relate to Manuschka's point, and I think being in a prevention is really the future.
It's the future. Yeah.
For me, if, preventing them to fall deep, even emotionally, to understand spiritually what could affect, how their health balance, we call it, in France, we said we have a capital health. And we measure this capital, this health like a capital. So you have to make sure that, you nourish it, you invest, but also, what you get back. So I think everybody is born with a capital health, and that we should take care of it, even when you don't think you need to, because it's at that moment that you will make sure you maintain that capital.
Yeah, because once you lose it, and we know how hard it is, because I can say as a nurse, to have a child sick or someone sick, even in early adulthood. It's not normal to be that ill, and it's horrible. So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, you think of people ill when they're really old, so it's not something we want to see, right?
No.
So we're coming down to the end of the interview, and I'm just curious because the world is a changing place like no ever, and I think we're about to enter a new time that's going to be even radical, like with Chat GPT coming, all these new inventions. They're going to impact our kids. They're going to impact our families. So I'm curious. First of all, the first question, let's deal with that. How do you see these new technologies, and what would you say to the world about any concern you might be having for the health of our families?
Well, that's a very hot topic right now with the ChatGPT discussion and the governance that was just spoken about. You know, do you want this to be, if there is a risk to society, do you still move on, at the expense of creating a lot of billions? So I do think that as a mother, we are living in that world. So we have to live in that world. Otherwise, we're going to miss it. But we need to be extremely cautious about the risk it has, especially as a mother, because you just want to weigh the risk for your kids. And I think one of the opportunities is to be able to leverage way more data, way more information, so you can learn more, be more efficient, understand when there's a disease or a state of being that you don't understand. You could ask, now communities, people with the same symptoms. So there is a way to learn from others.
That's the positive.
And that's the positive. And the challenge is that you will have in that data that is being shared a lot of crappy stuff. A lot of lies, a lot of information,
like
which
what's
are
truth, right?
Exactly. So then the real question is, understand the information, but check it. Don't be completely blind that this is the truth. So the truth is there when you have a real community of people with the real numbers, real research that are done by people that understand the topic, but don't believe it. Test it. Put your brain, your analytical brain, to use the data. Because as a mom, you could really have the wrong conclusion for your kids, and that's not loving your kids to impose them some lies.
Yeah, we have to get a system on a system, I think. It's gonna
absolutely.
you have this the AI, and now you're like, wait a minute. I think there'll be like truth teller mothers coming out, like sharing.
There are going to be new roles.
Yeah, exactly.
To be the key mom prompter.
Well, to me, I think it's a good innovation, but I'm also very fearful about it, especially for our kids, because everything is in there. And the thing I would like to give our kids is to say, please be your authentic self.
Beautiful.
Because that is something with everything which is going on. They put something in, everybody got the same resumes, the same essays. Everything is the same. It's all one big mass and sea of being the same. And that's the homogeneous part. I don't like that, to be very honest. I think there's such
creativity is being lost,
that's
right?
The whole creativity and being authentic and believing what you do and can do, is nice because it's all in that system. So we have to take them far away from that. Of course, use it in a way that will help them. But for me, it's also not only positive. I think I see a lot of negative in terms of will the strong survivors be the ones that are still true to themselves.
Yeah,
and be creative and stand up
and question each human.
And this is me, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I want to do in life, especially at that young age, because we're less susceptible, we're more like we're adults. We know what we read. But there's so much things going on for them to influence them. So we have to stay close to that creativity, because I think that at the end of the day will change everything.
It's
I think
who we are,
this is who we are. This is nice, but this is not going to bring us what we want at the end of the day.
If we're all the same, I think that is really scary.
It is very scary.
Yeah, and I also think there is a frequency. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a difference if I see some of the stuff on ChatGPT with art, and then I have an artist sister. It's a completely different feeling.
Day and night.
So day and night. So we can't lose that. That's so who we are as human beings essentially are creative human beings. And if we lose our creativity because we give it away, we give all our power away to a force beyond us, I think that's really scary. And I love that, because as you were telling that, I got chills, because that leads me to my last question. As a mother, what is the ultimate thing you wish for your children?
Just one thing, to be happy.
Exactly.
To be happy with themselves, to be happy in life, just to feel that they're confident enough, to do whatever they want to do in this world, whatever it will be.
Beautiful.
Me too, huh? To be happy. The best happy and to rire and laughing a lot. Laughing.
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 Sorry.
Yeah.
Laughing.
Maxime, you're
Yeah.
wonderful. Laughing. I love it.
I think it's the best medicine.
I give you a 5 there. I agree. I just wrote that. That's so funny.
But that's actually, we have a saying in French, huh? Which we say a good laugh is like a dinner.
Yeah.
If you no, so that's really true. I think to be loved and to love. I think it's all about love, and I think motherhood and being being kid. I would just wish them to be loved and to love.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you.